everybody, and welcome to this episode of In Conversation with CCW Europe. I'm Simon Hall, your host and industry analyst at CCW Europe, and today I'm delighted to be joined by the fabulous Jessica Ham, Head of Mid-Market Performance and Insights at Empower Business Solutions. Jessica,
Hi,
welcome.
Simon. Afternoon. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you as well. To begin with, for both the benefit of myself and our audience, can I begin by asking you to just introduce yourself, some of the work you do today? You've been at Empower, or the Empower organization, for nearly 16 years, moving up the ladder there through various functions. So just tell us more about your professional journey and some of the work you're doing today.
Yeah, of course. So like you say, I joined almost 16 years ago, straight out of university, to be honest, into the energy industry, brand new industry for me, hugely complex. Started in a variety of analytical roles, particularly within our commercial function, and then worked my way through to some managerial roles, managed our sales team, and then came into the customer service role 5 years ago. So head of mid-market customer service, so dealing with all our front-end customer service colleagues, including our complaints team, and then also some of the onboarding areas. And did that role for 5 years. And in the last 3 months, I've moved into the performance and insight role, as you mentioned.
Fantastic stuff. And so the crux of what we're here to talk about today is the nuances involved in managing people and processes as two big businesses come together. And to add some context to that, E.ON took over Empower in November of 2019 and began migrating customers in July of 2020, right in the middle of the pandemic. So just to set the stage then, Jessica, can you talk us through what that acquisition looked like from the inside?
Yeah, so as you said at the beginning, I was on the Empower side at the point of the acquisition. So E.ON acquired Empower. On paper, that looks really simple. We brought two big brands together. Empower Business Solutions became Empower Business Solutions powered by E.ON. In practice, it was really, really complicated. Been in the industry 16 years, by far the most challenging year of my career. For lots of different reasons. So I'll try and give you a flavour of what we went through.
Yep.
So firstly, we were bringing two big customer service teams together and going to what we called our future operator model, which actually looked quite different to both of those models individually. So we changed the structure of our teams. We had to take the teams through consultation. Majority of individuals got their desired outcome, which was really good. But equally, we did a lot of that through lockdown and remote working. So really quite a difficult, huge HR consultation, difficult doing that remotely. That was one aspect.
Yep.
We then had to migrate, as you said, all of the customers into one system. As a business, we took the decision to move those customers into the Empower system because Empower had been through a huge system transformation in the previous 12 months. So again, on paper, it looks simple. You bring an extra 10,000 customers into a system. We did that over 3 different migrations, but really, really complex. So every single customer bill is reliant on over 100 data items. And you can imagine that any inaccuracies in that data, different formatting in that data can cause all sorts of issues, not only through the system, but for what customers see off the back of it. So, and there were a huge number of people behind the scenes working to get all of that data migrated and then the bills out on time. Again, we were doing that through the pandemic, but also in what was the most volatile year in the energy industry that I've ever experienced. So customers were generally calling us more often because they had more queries about their bills. They're being more forensic about their accounts. And on top of that, they were seeing bills that looked different to what they'd seen before. So that was challenging. And we were migrating customers who had different products, different prices. Their bills looked different. And the new system didn't necessarily have that set up the way that we thought it did. So until those bills came out, then we started to unpick, well, actually, that customer's asked us a question because it looks different and we need to go back and fix something in the system. And as you can expect, it was our frontline teams who generally were spotting these through the calls that they were getting from customers. So as much as you can test and as much as you can try and make sure that all of the tests that come out of the system give you the outputs you require, it's only when those bills land with customers that you start getting the real kind of finer details pulled through, where customers were saying to us, no, this looks different. This isn't what I was expecting. And just to give you an idea of what that looked like, at one point we had over 50, relatively small, but 50 things that were not quite configured right in the system. Each of those had, 1,000 customers behind. That was customer experience, where they were saying, hold on a minute, this isn't right. I'm not going to pay my bill. And then we had to go back through that cycle of correcting it, getting new bills out, informing customers. So we tried our very best to do a lot of communication up front for customers to make sure they were aware that bills would look different and that they would be, they could call us if they had any queries. But actually, until the day that bill lands, any upfront comms, best endeavours, but actually most of that comes back as customer contact. So literally overnight, our abandonment rate went from 5-6% to over 40% because we just had a huge influx of customer demand. That took probably 6 months to we called it a crisis at the time, 6 months to stabilise. And then, over the last 6 months, it's normalised back to the levels that we'd expect, so much better and improved customer service levels. But it took its toll both on our customers and on our teams.
Sure. If we just dive a bit deeper into that, we talked about a lot of the roadblocks you encountered there. But how did you go about overcoming them? Internally, what kind of processes or practices did you employ to overcome them?
Yeah, so it varied depending on what they were, but we got buy-in really quickly, really early on from both my manager and then our CEO, which really helped to kind of put it on the map to say these things are issues and we need support from the wider business to get these fixed. We shared customer calls, and I think actually that was a really good way to land the message of how frustrating it was for our customers. And our contact centre became a real focal point for the rest of the business to understand what we were experiencing. So we had daily meetings at times to go through case by case. Some of them were quick fixes. Some of them would only affect 1 or 2 customers, but there'd be others that needed some heavier IT investment in terms of time and were affecting multiple customers, multiple thousands of customers. So we tried to do a bit of a 2-pronged approach to make sure we were chipping off the kind of the quick wins and the smaller ones on the list, but also focusing on, bigger, more complex changes that need to happen to get that bulk of customers through the billing cycle.
And onto the other side of this equation, namely your staff. What tactics did you put in place to try and ensure a smooth transition and essentially, protect them and get them involved in the process from the get-go?
So we encourage them really early on to just be open and honest and share their insight, and really empower them to say, you are the voice of the customer here. You're hearing, you're spotting trends that says, I've had 5 customers phone about that this week. I don't normally get any calls. Something doesn't look right. So I think, empowering them to speak up, giving the time to tell us what they were hearing and seeing. Also making sure they were part of that communication loop background. So we could say, well, actually, you flagged this issue on Monday. This is where it's gone by the end of the week. And actually the fix is in at the end of the next week. Because as an advisor, you might just think you've not had another call about it. So we thought it was really important to close that loop to make sure that the advisors knew that something had been fixed and that the reason they weren't seeing it again was because it had been fixed and that feedback loop worked. So, and I think just keeping them up to date with any conversations, even if things weren't moving as quick as we wanted, our customers wanted, but keeping the advisors informed so they knew what conversations were going on in the background, so they had an idea about what was coming next as well.
And fast forwarding to today and the more recent past, the last 12 months have been quite difficult for companies in the energy sector against the cost of living crisis, the focus point of which has often been rising gas and electricity prices. So what strategies have you put in place to keep the customer at the center of your thinking during these turbulent times?
Yeah, so off the back of all of the migration activity and everything we've talked about, we actually implemented a couple of things within the business, which probably sound quite simplistic. I've seen them done in other businesses. But for example, a customer forum. So we are talking regularly about what our customers are seeing and feeling and feedback we're getting, both positive and negative, but to try and keep those teams who aren't customer facing close to that customer conversation. We've done an awful lot and really positively embedded people into regular call listening sessions. Because again, if you're not on the phone to a customer regularly, or your role is one that sits, a couple of steps backwards, then it's difficult to appreciate all of the other things that are going on outside of the industry, but also how that's coming across in customer conversations. So I think having a real focus on customers internally has been really important. I think the other thing we found is our customers are being, rightly so, really forensic about their bills. We deal with B2B customers. So these are, customers who often own their own businesses. And energy costs, as you said, have gone up hugely, but also a lot of other costs have gone up. So it's, absolutely right that customers are trying to understand what's driving those costs, understand how they can use less energy, what time energy they're using that's more expensive as well. Many of our customers have multiple sites across the country. So actually they might have one site which is more energy efficient and another site which isn't. So trying to help them understand all of those things to try and help support them in their own journey to bring down their energy consumption and in turn reduce their costs as well.
And just changing tack slightly and diving into the employee experience, which I know is a keen area of focus for you. What work do you do in that area to promote the wellness of your workforce and create a dynamic, healthy working environment?
Yes, we do a huge variety of things with the team, mainly driven by our advisors. Actually, they often come up with the ideas about what it is they want to do as a team. So I'll try and give you an idea about some of the things we've done in the last 6 months. So over the summer, our local office backs onto a park. We took the team out and played Game of Rounders one afternoon.
Nice.
A bit of team building, a bit of competitiveness. But yeah, all really good fun. We've also got a real focus on DEI within E.ON. So we try our best to support a lot of the kind of weekly, monthly activities. So we had a big event for Pride. We decorated the office and, it looked very colourful. And the whole idea was to try and encourage individuals to be themselves at work, which is a big part of E.ON. Black History Month as well. We had a lot of activities going on throughout October to celebrate Black History Month. E.ON-wide, but also the contact centre tend to be the area of the business who really home in on these things and really, support them, which is brilliant. We've had some Christmas lunches and so on.
Nice.
But sometimes it's as small as, it could be a cake sale, it could be a raffle, just trying to keep some momentum, some quizzes, just trying to keep the team who, as anyone knows who's managed a contact centre, spend a lot of their time headset on talking to customers. We've tried to create that team building when we are in the office, trying to encourage the team to talk, to each other and to wider teams, just to keep some of that fun aspect of what comes with the contact centre.
Yeah. And pivoting slightly onto agent retention, it's an aspect of customer service that is so important, given that longer tenured agents are more likely to develop and build the industry and brand knowledge that is required to deliver the levels of customer service that consumers now expect. So 2 parts to this question then. First, how you approach the job of recruitment and getting the right people on board in the first place. And second, what methodologies have you adopted to reduce agent churn?
Yeah, so in terms of recruitment, like you said, it's really crucial that you spend the right amount of time recruiting the right people to give you that longevity and to meet your customers' expectations in terms of the service you provide. So within our industry, given the complexities, it typically takes 6 months plus for an agent to be fully competent to deal with all the queries that come in. So there's a real investment in the upfront training, which means it's really important we bring in the right individuals who will give it that time to train and to learn the role and the industry to then be able to be fully effective and, be able to then spend a couple of years in the contact centre doing the role. So I think up front, we've moved away from some of the kind of quicker recruitment drives and we spent longer bringing in people through either a series of interviews, some more competency based interviews to make sure that we're getting the right individuals in who will apply the time to the learning, but also make sure we support that learning, given that everybody learns in a different way to get individuals to be fully effective. I think the other thing that's been really crucial, and it links to both the recruitment but also the retention, is identifying individuals at the recruitment process who have career aspirations past the contact centre, which is positive both for us and for the advisors because they can see actually coming into a big company like E.ON, there's all sorts of avenues you can go down.
Wow.
And if you talk about that early on, in my experience, I think that means you bring in the better caliber individuals early on, but you also show them a career journey, which means they're more likely to stay with you.
Yep.
So moving into the retention aspect, it's largely around making sure we support individuals. Talked about a lot of the wellbeing stuff. That tends to be a really big focus for our teams. And one of the things they often say is what kind of keeps them with us. They enjoy the team atmosphere. They enjoy the work-life balance. We work in a hybrid way. So 2 days in the office, 3 days at home.
Yep.
That feels really important for our teams. And we've been really conscious not to try and change that, because that's working and that feels like it's given our advisors a really good balance as well. And then helping advisors see a path for progression. So a lot of our management team within the contact centre have previously been an advisor. Our overall manager of the contact centre was previously an advisor. And across the business in some more senior roles, we try and make a real point of acknowledging where somebody was previously an advisor, so that, you know, people who've come in the last 12, 24 months can see all sorts of different career paths, which means that they're less likely to move externally and more likely to spend a little bit longer in the role they're doing to set them up. And in my point of view on this, I share it with the advisors, is it's a great founding role for a career in the energy industry. The skill set you build up, the knowledge you build up. Most of the advisors know an awful lot more than I do about the ins and outs of customer accounts, but it's a great foundation for them to then build a whole career off the back of it. So we've been quite lucky this year, I guess, and I don't know if it's luck or, you know, through the things we've done, but we've had really little churn. We've had a handful of individuals who've moved, and I would say at least half of those moved internally in what I would call positive churn, because they've progressed through the organisation.
Let's change subject now and dive into the world of technology, the topic of the moment. How are you harnessing technology in your contact center right now?
So early days, to be honest, for us, we, over the past 12, 18 months, we migrated 14,000 customers onto a self-serve platform, probably a bit behind the curve of other industries. But it's been a big step forward for us and our customers to be able to view, you know, all of their portfolio 24/7, be able to self-serve some of the more simplistic queries. That's given us a bit of a stepping stone, I guess, for the next stage of our digital journey. But like I said, it's really complex. So we're not quite there yet with what that looks like. We have some bots on different parts of our websites, generally to try and support things like password resets and those queries that are frustrating for customers, but also they don't necessarily want to pick up the phone to call in to fix. So we have elements of the digital journey, but it's definitely not, you know, all singing, all dancing at this point. I think there's probably lots more to come. But we're also really keen, given the complexity of the industry and complexity of queries that we get, to maintain our email and call focus as well.
You touched upon it there, but what about generative AI? Everyone's talking about it, but at the moment there seems to be relatively few use cases in the market. So where are you on your AI journey, and how do you see it fitting into the customer service ecosystem more broadly?
Yeah, so we're talking about it, as I think most industries are.
For sure.
Don't have anything at the moment that we've got, plans in terms of a development, but our digital data team are supporting us in terms of understanding our current processes to see where some of these aspects could fit in. I think where we're more likely to see its use within the contact centre, particularly within E.ON, is via an agent support tool to help support their conversations. So, we previously had a 100-page document, which is our kind of where we point our advisors to query certain topics that they're being asked, to point them to the right, frequently asked questions and the more complex parts of queries, so they can help navigate that customer call. I think digitalizing that through some kind of AI would help support their conversations. In terms of anything that's customer facing, I think we're probably a good while away from that. And like you said, there's not many use cases out there. So I think half of this, and I've seen other industries do it, is you're kind of looking and watching for who does what next to see where you might leverage some of that learning as well.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, and a couple of broad questions to bring us home then, Jessica. The first one is, what are the challenges, or the main challenges you're going to be looking to tackle at Empower Business Solutions in 2024?
Yeah, so I think the energy market itself continues to be quite a challenge. So I think it's supporting our customers through navigating still quite high prices in the market. But the big one for us is really trying to support that shift for customers to a more sustainable way of using energy, reduce consumption, is being a big part of what E.ON's about, trying to make things more sustainable, use more sustainable energy sources as well. So I think that's a challenge, but it's also a great opportunity in that marketplace. And then you've talked about it as well. So that digital aspect, trying to make sure that we move at the pace our customers expect us to, but we don't move too quickly or leap ahead and take away some of the things that we do at the moment really well via more traditional channels. So I think a mix of different things. The industry itself never stands still. So I think we're probably, it's normally something that we don't expect as well that comes up, that we have to kind of, work with our colleagues and our customers to try and make sure that we can still give the right level of service that they expect, whilst also making sure that, everything else that we offer is in line with customers' expectations.
Yeah, absolutely. And lastly, what do you think comes next in the customer service space of the utilities industry? How do you see it evolving?
So for me, I think it's always going to have a human aspect, which I think is a really good thing. I think it's what our customers want, particularly in the B2B space. They want to talk to an individual about their account, a huge part of their outgoing expenses. But I do think there'll be more and more digital tools, whether they're in-house to help support our advisors, plus some aspects of self-serve and how that grows over time. I think customer service in the energy industry is really, really complex. I've tried to put it across through here, but I just think it's an ever-evolving industry that's only going to get more and more complex through time. So it's making sure the challenges for a supplier are making sure that we support our advisors in, their knowledge and their training tools, but we also maintain and exceed in levels of customer service because, that's really important to our customers. We want to make sure that we are serving them as business customers in the way that they expect to be served.
Yeah, wonderful. Jessica, thank you so much. Wonderful insights, wonderful takeaways for our audience. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you.
So that brings to a close this episode of In Conversation with CCW Europe. But please do stick around on the CCW Europe website and social media channels, where you can find so much great content related to the customer experience and customer management. Thank you so much again to Jessica for joining me. Thank you so much for tuning in. And until next time, goodbye.